Hello, I'm Taisha Teal, and I'm here to talk to you about a very important subject in the world of therapy. That subject is mindfulness. And with me right now, I have Christine Smith, who is a licensed family and marriage therapist at One-to-One Counseling in Morehead City, North Carolina, and she's going to talk to us about mindfulness, its history, and the techniques that she uses with her clients today. Christine, thank you so much for doing this video with me. I certainly appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So, like I mentioned, we were talking about mindfulness, and this is for my class project, and I wanted you to share with me how you use the techniques, how you incorporate them, what made you want to do mindfulness with your clients, and how it works. So if you don't mind, why don't you tell us a little bit about mindfulness?
Okay. Well, mindfulness, especially in the way that I use it with my clients, is about focusing your mental energies to help a person remain calm, reduce anxiety, and actually it helps to make life seem fuller and more rewarding. It can even alleviate symptoms of depression. Because when somebody's feeling like they're living a life that's worth living, then that's also helpful with not only anxiety but also with depression. So I use it with adults, children, people of all ages, so it's universal. And I just teach them techniques that they can use in their own time, especially times when they're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, sad, and it's about living in the moment.
Wonderful. Now, as a licensed and marriage family therapist, was this something that was taught to you during your studies, or did you kind of fall into mindfulness and start using it on your own?
Well, it's kind of a combination. It's not a model of therapy that was taught to us in MFT school. But the benefits of mindfulness have become very widely known. And there's actually a couple of established models of therapy that incorporate mindfulness. One of them is mindfulness-based stress reduction, and it's an entire program of mindfulness techniques to help people not only learn how to use mindfulness or learn how to do mindfulness, but then how to use it and incorporate it in their lives to improve their well-being. And then the second one is DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, which is a model of therapy that was originally created to treat people with borderline personality disorder, and now it's used for people with eating disorders. And there's even a DBT now for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I have a couple of clients, two different teenage boys who have a diagnosis of autism, and I use DBT for intellectual and developmental disabilities with them. And it helps them to incorporate techniques so that they could combine their rational thought with their emotions to make better decisions. So, for instance, in DBT, in the mindfulness component of DBT, there's a concept called wise mind. And wise mind incorporates rational mind and your emotional mind. So when we make decisions based only on emotions, they're generally not very good decisions.
Right.
And when we make decisions based only on rationality or logic, they're not very good decisions.
Absolutely.
So the wise mind combines elements of the two. How to make good rational decisions with incorporating the appropriate emotions and appropriate level of emotions. Because we do use emotions in everything we do. So, but do the emotions that one is experiencing and expressing match the situation?
Right.
So I find that it helps my clients, particularly the two with autism, to de-escalate their emotions and to use an appropriate level of emotions and choose the correct emotions to express when they're addressing any kind of challenges.
Right. It sounds like with that mindfulness-based part of the DBT model, that it helps a person find the balance that is so needed, not just in those with autism, but in everyday life.
Absolutely.
We all have to find a balance between our emotions and our rationale. We don't want to, make so many decisions that without emotions, and then we're very cruel and cold, callous people, but yet still we don't want every decision to be based off emotions, because then we choose to do the wrong thing hastily when we're operating totally out of emotion.
Yes, and so I think mindfulness also teaches emotional regulation.
Yes.
And I think one of the other important things to remember about mindfulness is that it can help people to then regulate their emotions more efficiently, and it also helps people to live in the moment.
Right.
If you're not living in the moment, you're living in either the past or the present. I'm sorry, the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so with people with anxiety, for example, they're either worried or fearful.
Mm-hmm.
They're either worried about something that's already happened that they cannot change, or they're fearful about something that hasn't even occurred yet.
Right.
So we teach them to live in the moment. We give them techniques that bring them to the present moment so that they can experience what's happening right now and not worry about the past or the future so much.
Well, that sounds like a very wonderful way to incorporate all of the emotions and feelings that people experience into therapy,
Mm-hmm.
And building that, client and therapist relationship so that they can actually go further in life with the techniques that you're offering.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm looking around your office, and for those who can, the backdrop, it's very beautiful, very serene office. And I love the way it's set up. I hear the water fountain.
Yes,
and
I've got.
there's some aromatherapy.
Mm-hmm.
How does all of this, the total package, your office and the way it's set up, help a client relax and get the full benefits of mindfulness techniques?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because very, very often when a brand new client comes through the door and they walk into my space here for the first time, they will look around and say, "Ooh, this is nice." And I don't think they mean, "Oh, your furniture is nice," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think they mean the sense they get is nice. It's calming. It's comfortable. It's like somebody's living room, and it's a welcoming place, a place that they can feel safe. So yes, I did incorporate some elements that are helpful with mindfulness in the office. First is the water feature, so you can hear the trickling water, and yes, the aromatherapy element as well. As a matter of fact, yesterday I saw a client. A teenage girl who has a history of some attachment injuries, and as such, she has some anxieties, and she has a little bit of trouble with emotional regulation. I know in your line of work, the kids who have had a rough beginning, a rough childhood, they've had some trauma, they've had some attachment injuries. When they don't feel very safe, they feel very, very angry.
Yes.
And so I've seen her a few times, and she's making great progress. But yesterday I wanted to work with her on mindfulness. And so I actually brought in a necklace that is mine that is a essential oil diffuser. And so the necklaces are like a locket. They can open and close, and they have little felt pads where you would put drops of your essential oils and then put it in the locket. And it diffuses. You can smell it.
Oh, wow.
And so I bought an essential oil that is a stress-relieving blend.
Okay.
And I put it in there. And I brought it for her to wear in session. I called it the calming and relaxing necklace. And we just sat on the floor and we talked about some of her emotions that she's feeling. But first, I opened it up. I explained what the necklace was and why it smelled so good. And then also I taught her a mindfulness technique. So sometimes mindfulness could be as simple as breathing, but breathing in an appropriate way.
Right.
So I turned on some meditation or yoga music, and we sat on the floor, and she got comfortable, and I told her she could close her eyes if she wanted to. And then I taught her 4-7-8 breathing, inhaling for the count of 4 through the nose, holding for 7, and then exhaling through the mouth for the count of 8. And there's actually empirical evidence supporting 4-7-8 breathing for reducing anxiety and stress, because not only does it bring the mind to the present moment if you're concentrating and counting on your breath, but also it serves to reset the autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system is where fight or flight resides.
Right.
So somebody who's anxious is like living in fight or flight mode.
Right.
And so that's with the sympathetic nervous system. Well, 4-7-8 breathing and mindfulness techniques actually use the parasympathetic nervous system to reset the sympathetic nervous system. So it brings down heart rate, brings down physical signs of stress. And so therefore the mental calming comes along with that. And so we did that yesterday, and I told her that's something that she can take with her. She doesn't have to let anybody know that she's doing it. So if she's in a public place or in a classroom or talking with her family member who might be upsetting her, she can just do that on her own without anybody knowing, and take her stress level down, and therefore de-escalate her emotions.
Right. That sounds wonderful. Now, one of the things I look forward to, since you brought up the technique of 4-7-8, is that you're going to practice that on me. So when we take a break and then we come back, I'm going to be prepared, and you can gladly introduce to the group the things that you're going to be doing and how you're going to help me